Are you a man? My name is Heather Feather. I am the owner of Rare Bird Medicine, and today's topic is Dear Sirs. I've been wanting to do this video for some time, and so if you identify as a man, please allow Heather Feather, on behalf of all consciousness in the paradigm, to offer you an apology. I apologize. I apologize if you feel vilified, if you feel invalidated, if you feel emasculated, if you feel like everyone's talking to you about women, women's rights, misogyny, F the patriarchy, whatever this is, and no one's talking about misandry or the prejudice against men and boys. No one's talking about the poisons and the pain that men go through every day, the struggles that they may face with mental health. We may talk about how women get objectified. Heather Feather, no matter what conversation we're having, I've been doing this since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. It is a little irritating for many different people. But if we're going to talk about a topic, what I want to do is go all the way down into the roots. I want to touch the mycelium. I want to touch the crystals. I want to find what it is that fed that either weed, that seed, that fruit-bearing tree to bloom in the garden in the first place. And I'm going to look at the root. And so we have a tendency collectively, culturally, to objectify our males. I've done a video some time ago called Objectified Male. We often condition our men, and this has been happening for a long time. I was just watching a comedian tonight. He was talking about how we would send our men into 15-hour days and dangerous jobs, in the 1800s, and women would be keeping the house and cooking and whatever that is, or, maybe wearing a lady's dress and having bonbons, whatever it was. And they would be in these dire circumstances working often. And we don't consider sometimes when we look at a slice of a given pie where the entire pie may need some adjustment. And I want us all to heal. And healing occurs when we have compassion and awareness of the entire topic that is at hand. And I have experienced tremendous misandry, prejudice against men and boys in the past decade, unlike any other decade I've ever existed in this flesh costume. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you feel invalidated. I'm sorry if it feels like you can't even stand in what it means to you to be a man because you're being told you need to be a feminist. Well, if you want to be a feminist, feminism is equality of the sexes. And I have had many, many, many conversations with many beings in this life, not even just in this decade, around the topic called feminism. And the topic always revolves around women. And feminism, although it begins with fem, is about equality of the sexes. Equality of the sexes means that with equal measure to discussing women and their needs and their poisons and what their medicine is, we discuss men and theys and two spirits. We discuss all the beings, intersex beings. We're discussing everyone on the spectrum. There's never been two genders at our school, just FYI. It's always been a spectrum. And so we acknowledge the entire spectrum and figure out what needs medicine. It's been my experience that men have been objectified for a very long time. They get objectified by what car they can provide, what home they can provide, what job they can have. If you go to a man's strip club, they're all dressed up with a job. Women aren't, which has its own conversation we could have around it. You know what I mean? She doesn't have to have a job. We just need to objectify and look at her body. But as a woman who's been objectified many times in this life, I've never thought it's not that I've never thought that, that's for sure. I've thought that a bunch. But I've never thought just that. I think, why is this happening to me? And when I go to look at the root, when I try to reach the mycelium, when I try to get the root of this weed growing in the garden, what I see is men being objectified. You're not able to create babies, so you better go have a job. You better get some money. You better be able to be a provider. You also better be the family's sense of safety and security. If something scary goes down, you're not allowed to be afraid. As a man, you're allowed to be angry and you're allowed to be happy, but you better not be sad. You're going to be called weak. You're not going to experience community that may be as nurturing or as generous listening. Men commit suicide 4 times more than women. That's a mental health issue. That's a mental health issue. And I've often said, I'm a woman that hasn't gotten paid as much as many men. Although there are men that have earned less than me, so it's a goofy conversation if we really want to look at it. But what I can say is that I didn't come out of my mother's body with cash in my hand. I came out of my mother's body crying. And it's possible, to me, it is, a far more egregious crime to not let an entity feel strong and powerful and validated if they cry, to teach them that they're weak, that they're not allowed to feel their feelings, which is the first thing they did when they got to Earth School and clearly part of the design, may be a far more egregious crime than not paying someone enough in the paradigm. You can also go create your own job and generate your own wealth in the modern age, women, you know? So I'm not invalidating what women go through. I'm playing that role in this flesh sack, in this space-time delusion right now. But as somebody who has been a man for many lifetimes, I find the modern age gross in the way that it's treating men. I am not a misandrist. I do not judge men and boys. I validate you. I value you. And anyone that's watching this video, I would venture to guess there's a man you can point to in the river of your life that you value too. Perhaps you even have men that have been more precious to you than some women who have been quite toxic in the river of your existence. And you can relate to a man being a safe space for you. A man having had emotional intelligence and having been a true rebel and having flown in the face of this collective conditioning where men have to be so hard. You got to be hard in these streets. I mean, especially if you're in indigent areas or low-income areas, there are many men that feel tremendous pressure to never be soft. They got to be hard. They got to be hard. They got to come at life hard. They got to be tough. Can you imagine, like, never getting to be sad and to grieve and to have heartache and heartbreak that gets expressed and shared with your friends and your community? And so they commit suicide at a rate that is 4 times higher. You know, I'm not stating ever, and this is the funny thing, is that when people always shine light on one side of the coin, and Heather Feather goes, let's look at the lunar side of the coin. What's going on the shadow side? What's going on in these roots while we fiddle with this one plant and act like all these other weeds aren't present in the garden, everybody? What can happen is, because the ego doesn't want to hear it, if the ego has been shining light on just women's rights, shining light that you've got to be a feminist and you've got to defend women and believe women. Don't believe all women. Some women are super not believable because they're called liars. They're called pathological liars. I've worked with them. I've met them. So no, don't believe all women. Don't believe all men either. Don't believe all theys. Don't believe all two-spirits. People can be liars. They can be pathological liars. Believe truth when it shows up at your door. Don't believe what others say about other people in the river of your life. Get to know them. Get to know the content of their character. I've never let others define people in the river of my life. I've had to, like, tell me that person's blah, blah, blah. Okay, karmically for you, let me get to know them. Let me figure out who they are. So first of all, I just want to say I am sorry. If you feel in the modern age you've been invalidated, it's been very much my experience. I validate you. I see you. I'm sorry for what you go through. I'm sorry if you struggle with your mental health. I'm sorry if you feel like you aren't valued on this earth. Heather Feather values you deeply. My therapist this week was having me look at friendship, and I was like, the construct of friendship under which I feel completely safe, completely unconditionally loved, completely able to be myself, completely able to express the magnitude and depth of my emotions is a very rare thing in the river of my life. And as I sat with this request from my therapist in the past 2 weeks, the 2 people that came to mind were men. They were men in the river of my life. They were my divine masculine friends that I do feel safe with, that I do feel seen with. I want you to know that there are those at Earth School that see you and that praise you and that are grateful for you and want you to be free in the way that you express and that want you to be healed too. May you find the path to your mental health, to your fullest expression and to the right to feel your heart. Amun.